Hi everyone, welcome to the latest episode of Liquidware Chats. In this episode, I sit down with David Bieneman. David, as you probably all well know, is the CEO of Liquidware. So I was really interested in getting to know David's background, where he started out in IT. So we first start looking at David's background in IT and how that kind of progression from just general IT into his entry into the world of EUC that led to the formation of Liquidware. We then look at Liquidware from its outset, what sort of the products were like when they first started out, what was the purpose, and how Liquidware as a company has evolved. We then go a bit deeper and we look at our latest innovation, which is CommandCTRL. CommandCTRL is a real-time remediation solution. It's SaaS-based. It's got a lot of innovations, and we look at each of those key innovations. And David kind of says where CommandCTRL sits in relation to our other solution, in particular Stratosphere UX. And then, usually I finish with a general question around what's the impact of AI in EUC. And because David was my guest, I made that question more specific, and I focused on what will be the impact of AI and how will AI be implemented in Liquidware solutions. And he laid out a plan for how it could be utilized in each of the solutions. So I really hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks very much. How are you today, David?
Good. I'm doing really good. I'm glad to be here. I've seen you do these things all year this year, and now I'm up in the seat. So it's exciting to be here with you. The year.
This is episode number 8. So we've done 8 episodes since we launched in April. So and I'm delighted to have you on. So thanks again for doing this. So just to start out, David, can you give me a little bit about your background and how you got into IT and then ultimately ended up in, the wonderful world that we call EUC?
Sounds good. In my teen years, I worked for a company that we got equipment back from lease. So there'd be medical equipment on lease, and there'd be a lot of computer equipment attached to it. And that computer equipment would go in the garbage, and the medical equipment would get resold. And so that was kind of a wasted opportunity we had saw. And so we had worked with that company and said, hey, why don't we take those computers back, peel them off the medical equipment, refurbish them, and see if we can resell them. And then we'll split the profits with it. And they were all game because those went in the garbage. And so
you were doing sustainability before it was even a term.
I guess so. And at that time, it was really cool because I was able to open up all this different equipment and look at all this different hardware and look at all these different operating systems and like, wow, what's this? And I got to learn a lot right off there. In the beginning, it was mostly shining up the equipment and trying to put it back out on. And then after a while, it was like really figuring out what it was and breaking it down and refurbishing it and the software too. And then, getting it out there to go. So that was the early days. And at that point in time, we worked with a computer store to like refurbish the boxes. And eventually I went and I moved up the ladder and I went to work for the computer store. And at the computer store, I was meeting and greeting people and trying to show them the computer equipment and how it worked and whatnot. And I was also tech supporting on the phone. And I was also going out to do service calls. And that just brought a lot of experience to me, broad experience in the home PC market, but also in the business computer market and networking and whatnot. At that point, after that, I went and moved up the rung again and worked with a distributor that we wound up buying the computer components from. And at that distributor, I was a salesperson there, but I was also a technical person and so I helped immediately when I got there manage their own network. And when I was managing the network at that distributor, it was a really interesting system. Everybody had a thin client at their desk when there was just PCs pretty much on everybody's desk. And the thin client was connected to a monochrome monitor and a keyboard. And what was really needed at that desk as a salesperson, you could be talking to a customer and you could be in your Act Contact Management DOS application. And the customer, as you're calling them and talking to them, could say, well, do you have this in stock? And instead of exiting out of your application or going to another PC on your desktop and looking up an inventory, you would hit Alt F2 or Alt F3 or Alt F4. And that would move you to a whole other DOS session on your screen with a menu system. And you'd press number 2 and get in your accounting. You'd hit Alt F3 and press number 3 and get into WordPerfect with a fax modem hooked up to it automatically. And you press Alt F4 and you get into Quattro Pro right? And so now you're a ninja now at your desk, and you're on with your customer, and you're moving through Alt F1 to Alt F4, and you're on their contact, and you're putting in notes, and you're looking up inventory, and you're kicking over them a pricing sheet automatically on your fax software, and you're in your accounting system and working on a better price, or your spreadsheet, and you pop back over, and you're multitasking, but you have one computer on your desktop. And so I learned at that point in time how the benefit was of multitasking. And that one thin client poured back to a 386, basically, where you could have 32 users and each could have 4 sessions and type thing. And if you had 3 users, you'd put in another 386, and you'd have half the users on one and half on the other. Maybe a Nobel
That was
box.
your scalability.
You'd be scaling like that, right? And so I learned
yeah.
a lot about multi-user at that point, and the advantages of having, multitasking and whatnot, and not having full PCs there, and one spot to install software, and how to make it multi-user compatible, even though it was single-user software with preferences in one spot. So I learned a lot back, and this was in the mid 90s, and then at that company, we started building servers and all kinds of other things and selling into the Citrix market. And I started supporting the Citrix market and helping these servers be performant for them. And it usually was configuration issues or environmental issues. And at one point in time, I said, this is great. I love technical supporting. I love coming up with helping people and scaling them. But doing it one person by one person at a time is kind of a limiting factor of what you can do to get the job done. And if we could do this with software and help people in masses and help deliver the same quality of repeatability to many different levels of administrators and technical people, that would be a real value. And I wound up leaving the company and starting my own business that was called Vizioncore at the time. And we had created shortcut control and printer mapping and permission setting software across multiple boxes, and also real-time monitoring and process priority adjustment with 4 different products that were sold in the multi-user Citrix ecosystem, again, to help deliver the same kind of quality with multiple different levels of people. And that took off pretty well. During that time, we were also involved with customers that were leveraging Citrix and wanted a better way to scale and test the environments. And we wound up implementing a product called VMware for a customer, putting their Citrix on that, doing a bunch of pre-prep work on those all the time, as far as testing out new softwares and before we went to the physicals and implemented everything. And at that point in time, the customer said, this VMware stuff is great. We're having problems with replication, this and that. And I heard a bunch of things in the background. And I said, we can really help these guys. We wound up making a hot backup software for VMware that wound up taking pictures of your virtual machines and copying them to remote locations and booting them up instantly. And it really helped scale the Citrix testing and what we were doing with the customer. But really what it did for us is we really realized that this was a market that was up and coming, this hot backup of VMware. And VMware was only a product that you would use to consolidate servers at that point in time. Nobody used it to set up a few and have a redundant copy of them. It was all about taking hundreds or thousands and moving them to hundreds or dozens. And a lot of customers out in the market didn't have the need for consolidation, but they had the need for backup and recovery and having a duplicate system at the other end with different hardware, dissimilar hardware. So we wound up shifting from making all these different products for Citrix ecosystem and multi-user and strictly making products to hot backup VMware. And the company changed, and we had a product called vRanger, called vRanger at the end. And the company blew up and grew. And we wound up creating then 4 products for that company as well, kind of like we had 4 for the Citrix ecosystem. And it was hot backup, and it was monitoring your ESX servers and virtual machines with ESX Charter. And then it was ESX Migrator, which would take you from ESX 1 to 2 and to 3 and this and that, and update your images and machines. And then there was another product too. So we had 4 different products for the VMware market. At that point in time, a company came in called Quest, wound up buying the company from me, and eventually sold it to Dell Corporation. And after that, I had left and going Vizioncore and started Liquidware. And when I started Liquidware, we kind of came full circle because we got right back into helping people onboard to VDI and stuff like that. So which was right back to the kind of
the whole multi-user thing, which you talked about earlier, but you were doing it on 386s.
Exactly. So that's kind of the story in a nutshell. It's kind of a long story. You're dealing with like 30 plus years, right? And a lot of the people that I work with today, I worked with 30 years ago, some of them 20 years ago, some of them only when Liquidware started at almost 15 years ago. So there's a number of different folks at Liquidware, but a number of them have a lot of history with us, and we all, we come from the same bumps and bruises and raisings, and so it's a neat team here.
What was kind of the primary objective of Liquidware when you first kind of founded it? Was it to assist with those kind of Citrix environments and make the management and deployment of apps, etc., more easier, or was it more around the monitoring when it first started?
In the beginning, it was about how to identify if your users could fit in a VDI package and operate in a VDI system. Did your applications fit there? Did your users fit there? Was the type of work that you were doing conducive to moving to that kind of a package or that kind of a deployment mechanism? And so at that point in time, everybody wanted, it was a buzzword. How do I get to VDI? How do I centralize these machines? How do I protect the data and move it central? How do I get the cost lower? I really wanted to get lower cost at that time, and that's really what it was going to deliver. It was going to deliver more protection and more process and whatnot. But at that time, everybody was scrambling. We got to get on this VDI thing, and how do we get there? And so we created a product that was like an on-ramp to VDI. We went out to the partners and we gave them a product which would help them assess environments, help them assess the applications in use, because nobody knew what applications they had in use out there, help them assess the users' environment and where they were coming from. How was their latency? Could they even support a connection, a remote connection? I mean, was their latency so poor where they would need a different type of technology that could withstand that type of latency on the connection? Or could they just use any technology as long as it provided decent remote protocol viewing? So at that point in time, it was really about how to identify the user's experience, the applications in use, prep and plan. And once you migrated over to this environment, VDI environment, you eventually would be coming into scaling concerns, just no doubt. And those concerns would be sometimes when people got the first bite of the apple, when they got in the environment, or be during the environment when other folks were coming in and logging in, there'd be slowdowns. And at that point in time, Stratosphere wasn't only used then to assess the environment to help them figure out who and what they had. It was also used then as you were scaling to figure out, are you meeting the same kind of expectations that you delivered when it was on a physical laptop? The login time, how's the app load time? How are the applications? Are they freezing up or are they operating well? And if they weren't, if you had more applications freezing up, if you had slower logon, if you had latency that was too high and the user's desktop the video wasn't good enough, then you could tweak the system. You could implement a better login process, or you could implement a different protocol, or you could go ahead and fix your gateway problem, or whatever the case may be, and help that scaling. So it started with assessment to help you figure out how to get somewhere. And then it helped you during that process and figuring out if you were able to deliver the same quality and scale it before you got all these users on there and had it all fall apart on you.
Very good. So UX is still doing all of that today. It's just we're now moving from on-prem to cloud, or hybrid, or whatever you want to look at. So it's interesting to kind of hear the background, but the ethos of the product is still the same. Essentially, it's still solving the same issues that you were dealing with in the mid 2000s in 2023, going into 2024. So it just shows the relevance of a solution like that in the market.
It is. And what's funny is I learned a lot, like you said, way back when, right? In the 90s and in the early 2000s. And in the early 2000s, we created a piece of software that looked at all your processes inside your Citrix environment, and the processes that were abusing the system, but that weren't relevant, were put down a little bit. The processes that were in front of the user's face might be put up a little bit. And we had a really neat piece of software that did process priority control. And you've heard of those things. They're out, and other people have them today. But that was way back then. And, fast forward to, 2011 or some time frame like that. And Stratosphere was a read-only product prior to that. It read information and it displayed it for you. And it read information, displayed it for you. And you could make decisions and go from there. But about 2011-ish, I'd have to go look exactly, we took a page from 10 years prior, right? And that was, hey, these processes and these guests, they still need to be handled, and they still need to be massaged, and there's a real-time amount of control that we need to implement into here to help that user experience flow, because stuff happens. You're not always able with the screen to kill processes or restart services, And so we implemented that technology that we created prior, which can look at those processes and keep that user experience at a constant, even when the system's under high load. And so it's fun to see how things can come full circle. How you start back then, you get some experience, you fast forward 10 years, and you wind up implementing something again that you created 10 years prior. So that's Stratosphere now. And it was only read-only, but also it does now some process priority control. And so it's evolved still, but a lot of it's come back from learning the first go around. So
yeah. Speaking of kind of, coming full circle and kind of looking at things like that is obviously, everyone now knows what the term DEX is. But we've had, in Stratosphere, we've had our UX score for a very long time. And it's only with, all of the kind of, DEX has definitely become a buzzword in the last year or two. So as it's defined, by, certain analysis firms. So just kind of, how do you think DEX kind of has affected our kind of roadmap going forward?
Well, we definitely have made some changes because of the DEX moniker that's come out. Prior to that, we were working on trying to help administrators understand user experience without having to look at all the different numbers on the screen. You have 50 metrics, you have 1,000 metrics, you have thousands of metrics, right? And the more metrics, not always the better the software, right? Because you get users or admins that just don't understand what all those numbers are all the time, right? Sure. You find the right one and they love the software with a lot of metrics, right? But if you don't have that, scientist type person, it's difficult to have them understand what it looks like when they're looking at the matrix, right? Just all these numbers flying around on the screen. So in the early days of Stratosphere, 2009, right away, immediately, we created a UX score, which is user experience score. And what that did was it looked at key metrics like login delay, app load time, applications not responding, latency, which was going to be a killer, right, for your remote protocol. It looked at things like failed network connections, disk IOPS, which were killer at that time with spinning disks and, trying to put multi-user systems together. So we took all those values and we munged them and merged them together into a UX score. So you can look at one UX score and were they an A, were they a B, were they a C, or were they a 1, a 2, a 3, however you want to think of it, right? Or a 3, a 2, a 1, rather, of how our scoring works. And that would help you identify if there was a poor user experience, an okay user experience, a great user experience. And then from there, you could look at the metrics that supported that user experience. So if you were a novice or a novel admin, you came into the picture here and you didn't know Citrix, you know all these numbers, or you didn't know VMware, you could look and say, well, this user has a C, they have a 1 for their score. These are the metrics that are red. It looks like there's a lot of latency and a lot of failed connections here. And maybe I should be investigating the network side of the equation and go talk with the network team. So that was early on. That's how the UX score came to be. And then we did a workload score and a security score and a bunch of other scores that really, again, do the same thing. They contain a bunch of metrics, but they give you an overall, and then you boil it down to those metrics or others, and you look and.
But it gives you very much a high level starting point that you can then delve deeper into. So it's
So then over time, the market kind of changed a little bit, and there was a new term that came out called DEX, and this is just a couple years ago now. And the big guys got together and talked about it, and DEX was born. DEX is really a combination of understanding what the user thinks about their experience, as well as the metrics behind that, and kind of tie those two together to get a real certainty for that user experience, not just a guess. So you get some user confirmation put together behind that user experience that you think the end user has there. And then at the same time, can we automatically deliver the better user experience when your user experience is going south? Can we proactively deliver a better user experience? And so DEX is about giving a good user experience for the adoption of the new technology in the market that might be faster, cheaper, better, more secure, more reliable. You're not going to adopt that new technology if your user experience isn't good. If you can't get to your app, if it's slow and you've got people in a line, they're looking at you like, what's your problem? Why can't you service their needs? That's going to put a lot of stress and pressure on you. You're not going to wake up and want to come to your job the next day. And there's a whole, it affects the user, it affects the customer, it affects your employees or your coworkers. So DEX can start from one point and affect a lot of different things in the organization. And so the most critical point of DEX, I think, is the first bite of the apple. When you get on your new system and you try to log in, if you can't get in the system, if you can't figure out how to get to your applications, if you can't get to your data, if you can't serve your customer, you have a bad user experience right at the first bite of your apple, and you've got a failed project. So you might have something better, faster, cheaper, but if the user experience didn't warm up to it on its first bite of the apple, it's got a negative connotation for the rest of the project. And that goes quickly through the organization. You got a failed project before you know it. So it's important to concentrate on DEX from even that perspective, that basic perspective. And so when we heard about DEX, we had a lot of the components already. We had the metrics, we had the roll above the quality data and still give you quality output, distilling those informations down to more simpler overall numbers. We had the ability to effect change. If a process was running too hot and it wasn't relevant, we could calm that process down to relieve contention on the box so that the processes that you were running that were relevant got more time. That is controlling DEX as well, right? So we had a lot of these pieces in. What we didn't have was user feedback. We didn't have user sentiment. We didn't have, hey, you're logging in, we see it's slow, we've modified some things, we think it's better now. How is your login?
Let us know. Yeah.
Or how was it and how is it now? And we didn't have those types of questions and confirmations. There's a new project happening. We're rolling out these 3 things. We want you to look for these things, Mr. User Acceptance Tester, and then let us know. We didn't have that either. Well, that's all changed, right? Now we've taken the time, the past couple of years, look through where DEX was being modeled, was being looked at how DEX was being modeled and what the requirements were, realized what we didn't have. We've now sewed that up, or we've closed that gap. And first quarter of next year, 2024, we'll be releasing our DEX product, if you wish to call it that. And that will basically contain user sentiment feedback in there, where you can actually craft different questions based on their answers. You can craft different follow-up questions. You get a nice preview of what all these questions are going to look like. And they work right with your Windows Notification Center. They can be snoozed. You can go to focus mode. They won't bother you. And that information is reported back to Stratosphere. And that can be overlaid against performance data. It can be overlaid against the questions that you asked and just the question answer data. It can be used in a number of different ways, sent out to other third-party systems like ServiceNow or Power BI via our API that any level administrator can use. As you know how we work, it's meant for any level administrator or API, no developer needed. So that's what we've looked at what DEX has been outlined on paper to as far as basic things that you have to be DEX compliant or to be in the DEX category. We were short on user sentiment feedback. That's it. We've added that in the product, and first quarter next year we'll be releasing our DEX product. So.
Yeah, and I've seen what it looks like. It looks very cool, and one of the things I noticed is it's fully customizable as well. Like customers can put their own branding on it, everything like that. So it's not going to pop up with this logo that maybe an end user has never seen before, because the whole thing is Stratosphere runs in the background. It doesn't interact. So this is a change for Liquidware in what we're doing. But as you said, we're filling that gap given the change in the market. So yeah, makes very much sense.
Yeah, and that information can be used in the future as well for AI. We're asking these questions. We're getting a bunch of information that's metrics. We think we know. We have a score. But now we're confirming with the user. The user is able to put their feedback in. We can marry that up with the metric. We can compare that to what we thought about the score. and see if we hit the nail on the head or if we're buried from where we think the user is and where the user thinks the user is. So that information is going to be coming in a lot more in the future to aid to aid the product. So, but it's going to take some time. It's not for release 1. So.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As I said, it'll be release 1 in Q1 or Q1 of next year. So, yep. Speaking of innovation, obviously earlier this year in August at VM Explorer, we brought CommandCTRL to the market, which was obviously your first new product in fair few years.
It's been some time. I'm not sure when the last product was. It was maybe even 2011 or 12 or something. When we came out with Flex App. Probably 2011.
So just looking at CommandCTRL, obviously it has some really key innovations that are brand new to the market as far as we can see. If you look at like the likes of our DVR playback, but which obviously I personally think is a game changer. I think it's one of my favorite features in CommandCTRL. It's so easy to use, and it gives you you have all of the data. It's real time. Then you have this feature where you can go and look at things in the past 7 days and just get all the information very, very quickly. Mm-hmm. But just in terms of CommandCTRL, how do you feel it kind of complements the other solutions in our portfolio?
It's a good question. A lot of people have that question. You have a monitoring product already. What do you have CommandCTRL for? Stratosphere has been a read-only monitoring product typically that monitors thousands of metrics for tens of thousands of users simultaneously. And it does it in somewhat of a real-time status, by the way. Stratosphere is always monitoring. It asks the system, hey, help me understand the last 5 minutes of time. And then the system would give that information to Stratosphere. And Stratosphere takes that information and in real time essentially monitors it and collects it. But then it sends it up every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes, or every hour, however you preset the upload. So in that case, you lose that real-time visibility. It collects it real time, it understands it real time. It's queuing it up and storing it in real time, but then it sends it up every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or every hour, or whatever your interval is. So that's where you lose your real-time communication with the endpoint, right?
Yeah.
And Stratosphere, again, it's more read-only. It does nowadays control process priorities and help you when you're under contention, have a consistent user experience. It does help trim memory and keep the system running smooth. If you're in, again, a tight package, let's say a 2 CPU virtual 4 gig box in the cloud, it can really help you feel great compared to what you'd feel like without that. But it's still really a read-only product other than that process priority and memory control. CommandCTRL is everything that Stratosphere is not. It's everything that customers have asked for in Stratosphere over the years that we weren't going to put into that package because of various reasons, right? It's a SaaS product, not an on-prem product, right? First and foremost. Yep. You don't have to set up an appliance. You don't have to update the appliance itself, the database, the collectors that you might put through the DMZs or around. It's hands-off as far as that goes. You deploy an agent out there and you start using the product. You don't deploy the product, manage the product, and scale the product as well as use the product.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Right?
Someone who's used it several times and demoed it several times. It is essentially you deploy an agent, straight away that information is sent to the console, and it is real time, and you can see it automatically refreshes itself every 3 seconds. You get live data.
So it's everything Stratosphere is not. It's SaaS. It's real time. It is a product that delivers control for the admin, control so that they can terminate processes, restart services, shadow a user, log a user off, reboot a box, or modify and work on the system that the user's on without disrupting them. That's like a game changer. That's the huge part about it. If you're in a teller line and you're an employee at a bank and you're working away and you're having challenges and your line's getting longer and longer, you can see these people, they're just hoping and somebody else opens up another teller station next to you. And so you're starting to sweat, right? You've got all this queue building up there.
Yeah.
but you got a problem. You can't get on the phone with somebody and start working on, yeah, it's not working for me. It's really slow right now. And, can you help me out here? You're working on this line. You've got to use your, right? So
Yeah.
with command control, an administrator in another part of the world can log into your system and can affect change without taking over your screen. They can have a secure prompt to your machine, a secure SSH, a secure PowerShell or command prompt to your machine. They can have one-click buttons in their GUI, which can perform a speed test, or which can perform a latency check, or which can perform a number of different, a trace route, right? Mm-hmm. And so one-click diagnostics from their screen to understand what's happening for that user and that endpoint from their perspective, from their location, where they're coming from. So it's really a game changer. It's everything Stratosphere is not. It has been built from the requests that customers had for Stratosphere and put into another companion product, again, command control. So.
Yeah, no, I think it does complement, and as we said earlier about Stratosphere is the two solutions very much do complement each other, because as you said, Stratosphere very much read only, command control you can interact, and obviously then if you think about it, that logically we're going to take it to the next level where we'll eventually you be able to do auto remediations and that kind of thing, and it's we need to stress that obviously it was a 1.0 release in August. The roadmap is very exciting. There's lots of things to come from it as a product as we move forward. But
it's completely secure too. Your endpoints start up, they register with the command control cloud service. Now you have a two-way communication established with the endpoint. Nobody can communicate with that endpoint except for where that endpoint's registered into. So you've got this ultimate understanding of what's happening at the endpoint. You've got this two-way communication. You've got this real-time update. You can affect change immediately. It's secure. It's reliable. So it's an amazing product to use from a GUI perspective. It draws you in. Many different people can use it right off the bat. There's built-in tips and tutorials that take you through how to use the product. The DVR playback it's like a natural usage because you've used play buttons and stop buttons and fast forward and rewind for years, and you've dragged on the play line head and scrubbed through videos, right? You scrubbed through our system as well, and you can see what's happening through that user session and figure out where you want to get to. There's a script library in there, which is amazing, and you can put different scripts in there, and those scripts can be one-click button run across the members of the organization. So lots to come with that product. It is on a 1.0. We have an aggressive development team working against that on a short timeline. So keep checking back with us on that for the community. But I'm really excited about that product.
Yeah, you mentioned it, and that's the thing. We do have a community edition for command control. The link is in the description below, and it should be on screen now. But basically, you can sign up for a free 1-year license for community and play around with it yourself. We give you access to 1 day of DVR with up to 5 machines. So, and we also have a Slack community, and you can give us any feedback you have on the product in that community. So
if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably fixing computers for your mom or your dad, or your grandma, or your brother and sister, or uncles or aunts, or somebody out there, right? So command control for the community edition is going to be perfect for you to go, alleviate the challenges that you might face in just supporting your own family members, right? I mean,
absolutely. My dad called me the other day, and I need to go and install command control on his laptop because he asked me a question, and if I'd been able to share the screen with him, I probably could have been able to fix it like in 2 minutes. Because
right, exactly.
Yeah, but it's perfect in that scenario as well as being perfect in an enterprise scenario as well, because it is SaaS, as we've said. It scales. Like we can scale it to whatever is required for a customer. I suppose one feature we didn't kind of mention, we've talked about quite a few of the features of command control, is obviously we're seeing more and more about people are using cloud desktops, whether that be the typical DAS players, be VMware, Citrix, but also Windows 365. So, and I think command control really comes into its own in Windows 365, because if you look at the way it's managed and the metrics that are, you get a basic level of monitoring from 365, whereas we kind of just enhance that and take it to the next level and give you that kind of option to remediate. So I suppose, and it's great that it does endpoints, but it does kind of open us up to another world, in that 365 is we're seeing more and more of cloud PC going forward. And I think as a solution, it's a really good fit for that.
Yeah, it's definitely a good solution for 365. It can definitely help you get, access and entree to that system. Again, without bothering the user, without disrupting the user, get right into the system and help the user. Of course, take control of the screen, help them pull up the quick assist and this and that without having them go through too much work. So yeah, there's definitely advantages for 365. It's natural fit there. It's natural fit to have it on the 365 and on the remote endpoint. So you could look at both pieces of the infrastructure. And of course, you can use our protocol mirroring when you're using that. So if you're looking at the endpoint, but you want to know how the protocol is on the virtual desktop, we'll take that user's virtual desktop protocol and we'll take that tile that we're monitoring that with and move it down to the endpoints screen so that you can see the tiles or the monitoring of that endpoint plus the connection with the remote desktop's virtual pipe. So that's nice. We also have the switch ability. So if you're on the M365 and you're looking at the user experience there in that desktop in the cloud, but you want to switch over to the endpoint and do a test real quick on the latency to the, let's say, gateway or to some kind of an IP address out there, specific IP address you have, you can click the switch button in the product, and we'll go from that virtual desktop in the cloud automatically to the endpoint that's registered. So you don't have to go look through some inventory and find out what the endpoint name is for that user or what the user logs into that endpoint as, and try to get into that, where that endpoint is. You just click the switch button and we'll go ahead and bring you down to that endpoint directly that's attached to that virtual desktop in a millisecond. And then let you click the one button, test the gateway, test the this, test the that, and understand the performance from the remote endpoint perspective, and then click switch again and go back to the virtual desktop. So it's a real nice solution that you have there. But really, that's value. That's value for virtual and physical and using them together. So 365. But I think where there's a huge increased value with Liquidware and 365, monitoring's great, remote remediation's great, helping the user, but really in the management of that 365, as far as the applications go, Liquidware really is in the best position to help you, I think, there. So I know you asked about command control in 365. I think you're spot on. I think even bigger value that Liquidware provides is when you're in a 365 package, you're pretty much managing that with Intune. You're delivering your apps and your persona there with Intune. And we can really help Windows 365 by delivering applications via Intune, via FlexApp, literally enabling and disabling them versus installing them in Windows 365 cloud PC packages. And it really makes managing 365 a dream and a game changer. So, I think we definitely can help 365. I think it's definitely helpful with our monitoring and our remediation. But I think we even have better value with our application management in 365.
No, I agree. Yeah, no, obviously, and FlexApp and FlexApp One, obviously in the Intune scenarios has been, I think, a game changer, and we've seen it internally, and the innovation is really there, and it's very much it's that health, it is that kind of helpful around that application management, which, we're still having issues with in 2023. We still haven't resolved that issue of how to manage applications and how to keep users happy and all that. So they're kind of all the same issues we've been dealing with. And, the whole suite of solutions from Liquidware help across the board with those. So just to kind of finish up, we touched very briefly on it there, but obviously if we go back to command control, we talked about innovations, but the one we missed was ChatGPT. It has ChatGPT, and everyone, I think, in our world at least, definitely knows about ChatGPT, and most people outside of it at this stage. But we have again, it's all about easing that troubleshooting process when it comes to ChatGPT, and how we go about identifying processes which potentially could be rogue. But given this is kind of our first foray into AI, where do you kind of see AI being integrated in Liquidware solutions going forward?
Sure. So we started off dipping our toe right now with AI and command control. We added compatibility so that you can enter your open API keys in the product and transfer basically process name information between command control and OpenAI systems. And what this does is it allows you to have insight into what processes are in the system that are running without you having to take those processes, go to your favorite search engine, search for those processes, and then try to understand what those processes do. So with one click of a button, command control can submit to OpenAI process name and get back a manufacturer and a brief description of what the process does to aid you, to help you identify what that process might be, if it's a good, bad, malicious, or not. So you're not, again, clicking around the internet and working and going in different rabbit holes. And so what does that do? That helps the user experience, the admin experience. It helps reduce your learning curve. It's more effective in issue resolution and scaling the team. And so that's our first entrance into the AI. It's not automatically doing something for you. It's not taking the information and automatically sending it all up to another system and divulging secrets out there in the world. It's process-based. You initiate it. Look this up for me. Tell me what this process name is. And then you get that information back. So huge help, a game changer, because if I want to find that stuff out, I'm pretty good at going to my favorite search engine and quickly moving through that information and coming out with good answers, but not everybody is. Not everybody is. And so this is going to really equal that playing field. As far as the other products go, as far as the other products go, there is a lot of, I think there's a lot of opportunity in there, a lot of opportunity, because we have 4 products wide, right? We're dealing with user persona on the endpoint, right? And making sure that you've got your personalization, you've got your security lockdowns, you've got your user portability across any desktop you log into. A lot of areas for AI to help with personalization and endpoint protection. That would be with our Profile Unity product. We've got the Flex App product, right, which packages applications, makes them portable, delivers them by any means necessary, whether you're using Intune, whether you're using VMware or Citrix or Physical or AVD, it doesn't matter. You can have those same applications with a great user experience broadly out there. But there's challenges with packaging and there's challenges with applications working together, and AI can help mitigate those things. And we have software, things like micro isolation and different session isolations that help with that too. But AI can come into the picture and it can say, these registry keys that were virtualized in package, or these files probably are always being removed by everybody from the package, so they should be removed from this one, right? AI is going to help us package better in the future and resolve issues in the future with Flex App. When you look at Stratosphere, AI could help in a lot of different areas. We've got a lot of metrics with user experience. We've got a lot of information being built from soon the feedback that's coming in from our questionnaire that we're releasing in the first quarter of next year. When you tie those metrics and that user experience feedback together, a lot of magic can happen from there, right? And so we're going to see Stratosphere and we're going to see DEX be affected by AI to the positive over time. And that's going to be in a combination of the feedback with the metrics and merging those together. There's my Siri. And lastly, I think, you've got command control, right? Which you've seen us put a little bit of AI in today. But going forward, there's a lot of remediation, auto remediation, and proactiveness that we'll be delivering from command control, and we'll be using AI to help that as well. So 4 products wide, 4 opportunities or more to leverage AI. We've started with command control right now, but we have plans to move AI throughout the product line, absolutely, throughout the whole essential suite, which really delivers the best decks out in the market when you look at these products, because all 4 products, You need them all. You identify an issue with login. What do? You go run to your optimize the login. You take your profile, Unity, or whatever it is, and you optimize that login so it delivers that login even faster. You know, your user doesn't have the same apps all around the organization. They log into different environments, or those apps behave differently. What do? You flex app the app instead, and you make it so it's a generic enable, disable, and it works across all the environments, and the user has the same kind of experience in the app everywhere they go. That's affecting the digital user experience, right? You see that something's running hot in the operating system. You've identified it with your monitoring, and then look at it, it's taking all the resources, and it's not even an important app. It's something like, CommandCTRL runner, or who knows what it is. Maybe it's MSI exec installing a Windows update. You need to control it, right? And what are you going to do? You got to affect the DEX. Well, don't worry. You just flip the button for process priority control and memory management, and Stratosphere is automatically making that user experience feel good, even though there's a background process that's trying to kill the box. That is affecting DEX, right? And then, of course, you got command control, which you can right now right-click and kill a process and restart services and do all kinds of things without the user even being interrupted through a back door. That is affecting DEX. You got to get that user off the box and tell them, please let the mouse go so you can shadow the screen and start running things, and don't look while you try to elevate stuff. That's not good DEX. I don't care if you monitored it and you had a feedback questionnaire that told them all kinds of information about that experience and approved it or disproved what you thought on your metric or whatever. That's not good DEX. So Liquidware is delivering the best DEX across platforms with the 4 products that back up the monitoring, and in Q1, the user sentiment feedback. So
excellent. That I think that's really sums up what we do and what we're doing going forward. David, it's been a pleasure. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. I think people are really going to enjoy this episode and getting insights into you from your background and how Liquidware has grown as a company to what we're going to do with AI in the future. So thanks very much. Hope everyone enjoys the episode.
James, thanks so much. The only thing I didn't do was thank you for all your hard work in starting up this channel and starting up the community and running around the world and being a face for Liquidware and diving right in and making it happen and learning all about these 4 different products that are broad and are deep. And it's a lot. That doesn't just happen overnight with anybody. It takes a special person that really wants to dig in and wants to do this as well. So I should have started off with a thank you, but we're ending on a thank you. And I thank you very much. It's been a pleasure working with you this year, and I look forward to doing it all through 2024.
Thanks very much, David. Enjoy the episode, everyone.